My name's Adam Hill. I'm the Chief Executive of Oncimmune, ONC, listed on AIM. And this evening I'm going to be talking to you about this 17-year-old company and some of the work that we've been doing over the last year. The obligatory disclaimer I'm not going to dwell upon because many of you will have seen one of these before. As it says on the can, Oncimmune is focused on cancer. Cancer is a significant problem worldwide. 1 in 6 deaths are attributed to the disease, 30 million cases by 2040, and that continues to rise. But of course, the battle against cancer hinges upon 2 things, and 2 things only: the ability to detect the disease early, as late-stage detection leads to the worst outcomes, and the ability to treat the disease successfully. And in both of those cases, Oncimmune has a role to play. Our perspective on cancer is very much one of the use of the body's own immune system to detect the disease. And our proprietary platform technology, an auto-antibody technology that is unique to Oncimmune, has been demonstrated to detect the disease up to 4 years, and in some cases more than 4 years ahead of standard of care. In addition, that platform technology has been demonstrated to be able to stratify patients into those that may or may not respond to certain forms of novel drugs, a class of drug called immunotherapy that today is an $80 billion market opportunity, and that is likely to rise to in excess of $170 billion over the next decade. The concept's a very simple one. Our cells divide billions of times a day, and it's therefore a statistical probability that not all of those divisions go to plan, replicating form and function, the shape of the cell and the job of the cell. However, we don't all have cancer, and the reason for that is the body's policeman, the immune system, identifies those cells, 10, 20, 100, maybe a day, and pushes them into early programmed cell death. That's until it doesn't. That's until it fails to achieve that. And when it fails to achieve that, cancer has an opportunity to take hold, developing its own immune system, developing its own vascular supply. So we're in the business of detecting the signal of the immune system going wrong, what's called in scientific parlance broken immune tolerance. And we use that in order to detect the disease early and to better inform the choice of therapies for the disease. So why are we special? Why aren't other people doing a similar sort of thing? Well, over the last 20 years, since we span out of Nottingham University, we've been building a library of raw materials, and these proteins that are seen on the cells on the surface of cancer cells and invoke an immune response. And we use that in order to develop our diagnostic products. Those diagnostic products require a huge amount of data analysis, and we are one of the diagnostic companies listed on AIM with the highest number of bioinformaticians or data scientists per head count in the company. And then, of course, we have established routes to market for our product, selling into 22 countries through 17 relationships. At its very core, and in summary, that library, protected by over 200 patents and over 100 peer-reviewed papers name-checking our product, protect our right to commercialize. Today, we've launched a lung product in 2012, a liver product in 2018, and on the product side of our business have £42 million worth of forward order commitments over the coming years. But we also have a service business that's working hand in hand with the pharmaceutical industry to help them better develop drugs for cancer care. The full stack service or capability that we've developed ranges from our high throughput discovery platform, Serotag, through to the R&D products or R&D tools that we developed that we call Navigate, and then layered upon that the expert bioinformatics or machine learning capability that the company has developed over a number of years. And then finally, the ability to productize that know-how, productize that signal in an asset that can save lives. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. As I've said, we've launched lung and liver, but please don't think of us as a single asset diagnostic company. We simply aren't. There are more shots on goal, ranging from ovarian, breast and prostate that are only a matter of months away from market, and colorectal and gastroesophageal disease. Jim is 72. He's smoked since the age of 7, and he participated in one of our studies. In fact, the study was the largest study of a blood biomarker for cancer detection in the world, and we reported out on that study in September last year. A great catalyst for growth. That study has given us the highest level of evidence, the most amount of scientific evidence of any other blood-based biomarker for cancer detection. And as a result of participating, Jim today is alive, as he had managed to have early stage surgery for his cancer, as is Rebecca. Rebecca has been the face of a campaign that we ran in February to showcase the lives of people that are today still with us as a result of the use of a diagnostic. The first time in my memory that a diagnostic company has been able to say it has had a direct impact on patient lives. So who else is able to make the claims that this company is? Well, very few, quite frankly. The billions of dollars that have gone into the diagnostics industry, primarily in the US, have gone into companies that are still many, many years behind us, and indeed won't be able to catch up, as they have trials equal in length to us that they're going to have to complete. But there are two. Exact Sciences, market cap today of about 18 billion, and Epigenomics, listed on Frankfurt, are both companies, in this case in the colorectal cancer space explicitly, that can make similar sorts of claims, but no one else is on a similar playing field to us in Exact and Epigenomics. So recent highlights over the last 12 months, well, I've already remarked upon the landmark study, the ECLS study we ran up in Scotland, about £10 million that we spent alongside NHS Scotland on that study, and it's been reported out in September. There is a leading medical journal publication expected from that study in the not too distant future, as well as the health economic publication from that study anticipated in the second quarter of our financial year, which we're only the first month into. Incidentally, that study was highlighted in the Sunday Post only this Sunday, a West Coast of Scotland local paper that is now campaigning for the Scottish Government to take up the EarlyCDT-Lung test that it has invested so heavily in. However, we are preparing for an evaluation, a further evaluation, albeit on commercial terms, of the product in Scotland and across England also, recruiting up to about 200,000 patients, and to demonstrate once and for all that this product has a role in screening for early stage disease. The first time a diagnostic company ever will have undertaken such a Herculean task. We signed a strategic agreement with Biodesics in the US that amounts to about $28 million worth of value to us over the initial term, 5-year deal rolling into a second 5 years upon performance of the contract. And equally, we signed a deal with Russia's largest drug distributor, R-Pharm, to set up a screening program in Moscow. All told, an investment by R-Pharm of about £8.5 million. Equally, in Spain, we have the two largest providers of healthcare there, representing about 50% of all healthcare provision in Spain, having launched a nodular assessment and screening capability ahead of the COVID lockdown, and now very much gearing that capability back up. We made an acquisition in the year also of a German company, and to further bolster our service capabilities with pharmaceutical companies, and today we can count 8 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world as clients, with approximately 70% repeat business for in-flight programs. Most recently, we've announced 2 contract with Roche Pharmaceuticals and 2 further biopharmaceutical deals with as yet unnamed partners. We have a robust growing pipeline of relationships, and I fully expect in Q1 and Q2 of this new financial year we will be announcing more. From a financial perspective, we are in rude health. We've got a strong balance sheet of approximately 4.2 million and net debt of approximately 3.1 million, having reported out at the end of May, the end of our FY20 financial year, in line with market expectation. We have contracts signed with the service, the Immunoinsights, part of our business out of Dortmund with strategic biopharmaceutical partners, and that provides the board increased confidence about the growth trajectory, the revenue growth trajectory over the next 12 to 18 months. Finally, I'm going to leave you a slide of Wilma. Wilma was picked up with a positive blood test, but it wasn't until her 5th scan that lung cancer was diagnosed, some 20 months after having a blood test. She runs a soup kitchen with her husband Stanley in the photo. The remarkable thing about Wilma is she stopped smoking 18 years ago. This is an insidious disease that is very difficult to detect, but we have a technology that's available today and able to save lives. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting presentation. So let's get straight into the questions. Question earlier on about AI. Can you discuss the potential for AI to provide leverage to your products and services? Another thing in that, I guess, it's part of the same thing, kind of big data. You're doing so many tests, or that potentially you're going to have so many people on those programs. How you can use that data and that scale of data?
Sure. So my background is actually in the development of devices that require a data platform to perform at their best, having come from McLaren Applied Technologies before joining Oncimmune. And what I found at Oncimmune when I joined 2 years ago is a rich bio and data repository from all of the samples that we have analysed over time. In excess of 300,000 lung blood samples we've analysed, and many thousand more from patients with other cancers, and indeed patients with other cancers on different forms of therapy. And so the key to developing a data or decision science capability, and therefore unlocking the latent potential of the diagnostic test, of course, is to have access to that data. And Oncimmune is one of the few diagnostic companies that not only has access, but owns much of that data, I think, is the first point. The second is that we have 8 data scientists in our bioinformatics and medical statistics team of a headcount of 50. So we've invested heavily in that capability, and rightly so, as they are able to derive insight from that data that many other companies would struggle to develop. And as a result, we have a highly differentiated offering to pharmaceutical companies, which has supported our ability to win repeat business.
And how do you get people to participate in the test or the trials that you've done? The large one they mentioned in Scotland. How do people participate? Is that organised by a health service, or are you trying to run that yourself? Can you talk to that for a minute?
No, it's run by a health service, and so typically there is an entry criteria for the use of the diagnostic, and in this case, for our lung cancer product at least, you need to be over the age of 50, and you need to have been a smoker. You don't necessarily need to be a smoker, but you need to have been a smoker to meet the criteria for the test. However, often you have no symptoms. You maybe can walk to the shop and back without getting breathless. You certainly aren't in any pain. You don't have a persistent cough. And so why would you think of yourself as a patient? And so more often than not, and certainly this was the case with the ECLS study, GPs write to patients that meet the criteria and say, I recognize you don't think of yourself as potentially having cancer, but we think you have risk factors that would make us concerned that you have cancer. Would you consider having the test? And our test is very simple. It can either be performed with a finger prick and a drop of blood into a little vial, which can be sent back via the post, or it is just a draw from your antecubital fossa from the back of your elbow, requiring as little as a teaspoon of blood for us to then be able to analyze in a laboratory using very standard technology.
We've had a couple of kind of biopharma and kind of healthcare technology companies present in the last couple of months, and the conversation we've had a few times has been about a US listing and the valuations that companies achieve in the States versus in London. Is that something that you think is kind of applicable to you? Do you look towards the US, or do you think London is the right place for you?
So we're an AIM-listed company, and I certainly think there are enough sophisticated and knowledgeable investors in London to be able to support a biotech equity story as it develops. However, we can't ignore the fact that NASDAQ is a very mature exchange that supports biotech companies effectively achieving valuations that certainly exceed those that we see in Europe. As a company, we have a huge number of relationships with funds, with investment banks in the US. Our story is well known and will become increasingly well known as Biodesix, our partner in the region, continues to sell the test and report on its performance in the market.
And it certainly looks like the share price performance this year would indicate that the story is getting out and people are understanding the potential of the company. And we've had a couple of questions about cash position. I think you said it was 4.2 million, if that's right. When would you expect or hope to be cash flow positive?
So the analysts have us pegged for being cash flow positive in the next financial year. And we will see what the next 12 months has in hold for us. But I think I don't want to leave you under any illusion that we're going to be needing to support our cash position with a fundraise anytime soon. That is absolutely not the case. Business as usual is now in a position to look after itself with the revenue that we have line of sight to over the coming quarters, and of course a fairly aggressive approach to cost minimization, which we have been implementing over the last 12 months. So the board feels very comfortable to deliver business as usual without having to support that cash position. However, we have been acquisitive. We have bought a company and we've sold a company in the last 12 months, and we may enter into similar sorts of activities over the next 12 months. If we do that, and there is a requirement in order to raise money to support that activity, we of course will be coming back to shareholders to have that conversation ahead of time.
Do you think the environment for acquisition? Do you think there are companies, or do you feel that that is a good market to be an acquirer?
Look, I don't think that every company will have coped with COVID-19 quite in the way that we have. We are coming out of this period of lockdown stronger than we went into it, and certainly with a more robust forecast than maybe we had anticipated at this stage in what ultimately is a three-year strategy. And so I do think there will be companies that have adjacent technology, that have competence, that would be synergistic, and that have routes to market and to complement our own, and ultimately revenue that could be bolted on or tucked into the Oncimmune group.
and I get any probably covered that, but I'll ask anyway because I've had a couple of questions around this, and it is the impact of the pandemic on the pipeline. Do you feel the pipeline has been particularly impacted? Does it to make the decision-making process longer for potential clients?
Certainly, the product side of our business has been impacted. It is difficult to talk to clinicians about early cancer detection, or certainly it has been difficult to talk to clinicians about early cancer detection over the last 3 or 4 months. That is changing dramatically. For the first time in my 20-year career, I'm seeing healthcare systems knock on the door of companies such as us and ask for help, and that's certainly happening on a frequent basis for Oncimmune. However, the surprising response to the pandemic has been in the significant uptick in our service business. We and I can only attribute this to pharmaceutical companies doing less meetings, traveling less, and having more time to focus on clinical trials and their analysis. But we are seeing a deluge of interest in our Immunoinsights business at the moment.
I've had a question about the disposal, the company you sold. Could you explain the rationale for that, please?
So we sold our US subsidiary, and the reason for doing that is because the market was expecting us to find a strategic partner in the US, quite rightly, for a British company, and the US is difficult to navigate. And in the process of finding just an excellent, if not the most excellent, lung cancer dedicated US domiciled diagnostic company to be our partner in the region, we were able to negotiate a deal where we reduced our cost base and therefore our cash burn by divesting that subsidiary with its 26 heads and clear laboratory facility in Kansas.
Okay, I appreciate you're going to get a bit of an interrogation from me, Adam, and apologies for jumping from one question, one subject to another, kind of keeping you on your toes here. Final one for me, I think, is going to be about the way that you're paid from your contracts. You mentioned you have, I think, £42 million of forward order commitments.
Yes.
And how that tends to be staggered. Do you get much money up front? Are there milestones? Or is it kind of success based for product development? Could you just kind of talk through that, please?
So our product and service business are synergistic, highly synergistic, because whilst both highly profitable businesses, they have a different character to the revenue that we see. On the service side of the business, when working with a pharmaceutical company, it is not unusual to see the lion's share of that contract paid up front, with the rest of it milestone to a report at the end of the contract. And those contracts can be multi-month contracts, and ultimately those contracts become multi-project, multi-month contracts. On the product side of the business, of course, we develop product, we supply to distributors, or we sell directly. But in both of those scenarios, we are looking for an in-market price of approximately £100 or €100 or $100 per test. Now, in the US, there is a tendency to price tests higher than that, and it wouldn't be unusual for our test to be priced in excess of $600 in the US, and that's then balanced against regions that aren't able to pay $100 for a lung cancer diagnostic test. But on average, we're looking at about $100 a test as the in-market selling price, and of course a cost of goods that really is only a couple of dollars. Okay,
Adam, we are out of time, so thank you very much indeed. Again, apologies if I didn't get a chance to ask your question, and we had quite a few here, more than I managed to get through. So Adam, thank you for joining us.